Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And several people sent me links to a video Rich Piana did sometime last week talking about how you should be getting insane pumps if you're trying to make a muscle grow and not worry about the weight. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. So I watched the video. And this goes to show you that it is possible for people to get big who literally don't know how the body works, who literally don't know what muscles, tendons, joints actually do in the body. They don't actually know the purpose of any of those things, because that's clearly the case watching this video. And it's scary that someone can have a fitness channel and get over 1 million subscribers who literally doesn't know what tendons and muscles actually physically do in the body. He doesn't actually know the difference between them. That's scary. So what Rich does here, talking about weight on the bar, he creates this big false dichotomy. This false dichotomy that there's two types of people. You know, Rich always likes to do it. There's two types of people in the world. There's two types of people. All right, this is another example. That these guys who only chase numbers versus people who want to feel the weight and get a pump. You know what? The only difference here, you're talking about kids who don't know what they're doing. Anyone who is chasing strength, who is truly chasing numbers because they want to get stronger, doesn't use shitty form. They don't use partials and everything just to lift more weight. Okay, there's plenty of top coaches and top power lifters out there. Perfect example is Paul Carter. Paul Carter ranked very well at the world level in powerlifting. Fantastic coach. He writes the blog Lift, Run, Bang. He talks about that all the time, that you're in the gym to build strength, not demonstrate strength. And how do you build strength? You build strength by training your muscles, right? You build strength by training your muscles. It takes strong muscles to squat over 500 pounds raw ass to grass. It takes really strong muscles to do that. It takes strong muscles to bring 405 down to your chest on the bench press, pause it for a 1 count, for a full second, and then press it back up. That takes a lot of muscular strength to do that, right? Anyone disagree with that? Takes a lot of muscular strength to take 600 or 700 pounds on a deadlift on the floor, on a normal bar, and pull it. To reach down and lift that up and lock it out from a lockout through a full range of motion on a conventional deadlift, 600-700 pounds, that takes a lot of muscular strength. Muscles get stronger by training them. Every strength athlete and power lifter in the world who's successful knows this. All right? He creates this false paradigm that everyone chasing numbers doesn't know that. Really, there's tons of strength coaches who are chasing numbers and have their athletes chase numbers, who have them do pause squats, ass to grass in the off season for months on end, who make them pause with the bar on their chest on the bench press for 2 seconds at a time on every rep. All right, there are strength coaches who make their athletes deficit deadlift, so it's even harder to lift it out of the bottom. All right, there's plenty of coaches who do that. There's plenty of strength athletes who do that. They're all still chasing numbers, because when you're working the muscles correctly and you're not doing like Strap-On Destiny does and doing whatever crazy lifts you can just to have more weight on the bar to show off. All right, guys like Strap-On Destiny, that's the ego lifting we're talking about. Serious strength athletes don't do this silly shit. Most serious strength athletes are very careful of their technique and form, and they will use techniques that make the lift harder to do oftentimes in the off season so that they get stronger and the muscles get a lot stronger. So he creates this false dichotomy, this complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit. And you know, he goes on to say that when you're lifting heavy weights, your tendons and your joints are doing all the work. Rich, I want you to tell me what world you live in to where tendons are capable of even lifting 1 pound. That tendons are capable of creating force. Just if you squat all the way down to depth with 500 pounds on your back and you stand back up with it, that is not being done by your tendons. Your tendons are not capable of generating even 1 pound of force, let alone 500 to bring you back up. All right, you deadlift 600 pounds off the floor. Your tendons are not generating a single pound of force. Your muscles are doing 100% of the work. Tendons don't contract. Tendons do not contract. Tendons are support structures. They don't do any work. Joints are not capable of contracting. Joints do not do any work. They do zero. Your muscles are lifting all of it. And the reason some people are stronger than others with a given size muscle is because they have better neuromuscular efficiency. It's because they are capable of contracting their muscles harder. The muscles are generating all of the force, all of it, when you lift a weight. Now, when you cheat, you're bringing other muscles in. You're allowing other muscles besides just the ones you're trying to work to help. But it's still all muscles doing it. All right, that's how ignorant this guy is. This is why, again, people need to understand. Don't take advice from someone who uses 4 grams of gear, has implants, synthol, and collagen in their body. He probably doesn't know a lot about how to actually train to get bigger. Rich admits 4.5 grams of anabolics combined with growth hormone, combined with IGF-1. Do you guys understand that most people could do jumping jacks? If they use the amount of drugs that he uses and admits to, and they ate the calories that he ate, they would get really big just doing jumping jacks. And burpees. That's all they would need to get big. They might not get as big as if they lift weights, but they're going to get a lot bigger than any natural in the world. Even the top natty pro bodybuilders, if they're really natural, a person's going to get bigger than them on those sort of drugs without even actually lifting. All right, and anyone who goes and looks at studies understands why that is. It's not rocket science. So he does that, and then he's got all this collagen, he's got synthol, he's got implants. He's got at least 2 different sets of implants in his body. He clearly has synthol, clearly has collagen, uses tons of gear. Maybe he shouldn't be giving out advice for people who aren't doing what he's doing, because it's not going to work. I mean, he doesn't actually know what muscles do in the body. He doesn't know that muscles lift all the weights no matter what. Now, he goes on to say that when you lift lighter, that your joints and tendons aren't taking any of the load. That it's only your muscles then taking the load. Muscles are doing all the work whether you're lifting light or heavy. Muscles are doing all the work whether you use good form or bad form. They're doing the work. Now, when you lift light, you still have the same situation. 100% of the load goes through the tendons. So what do you mean? Tendons are on the end of the muscles. All of the work that your muscles do is pulled through a tendon. Muscles pull tendons. Tendons attach to bone. So when you curl, and this is basic anatomy, and this is messed up that Rich doesn't even know this stuff. When you curl, the bicep is doing the work. All of the tension is going through the tendon into the bone, and it's creating a lever arm. See the bone? The forearm? All right. The muscle does all the work, but the tendons take load. They're like cables that are hooked on that you pull things with. They're hooked onto the bones. They connect the bones to the muscles. The tendons are taking all of the workload. On whether you're lifting light or heavy, they're being used as a connection, a bridge, and they are being stretched. That's what tendons do. They hook on the bones, muscles contract and pull the tendons. Even when you're lowering, the tendons are still being pulled. Just like a cable. Think of them as a cable, and the muscles are like the winch, the motor on a winch rolling a cable up or down. All right, that's what they do. Think of it in that way. Whether you're lifting light or heavy doesn't affect the amount of ratios of either one get. The tendons are still being subjected to the stretch and the work, and the muscles are doing all the work. And the bones are levers in the support structure. Again, this is absolute absurdity. This is just complete and sheer ignorance to say things like that. It's complete ignorance. And you know, the thing is, to act like muscles don't take all of the work, what do you think muscles do? When you lift a weight, and let's just keep it simple. Let's not even get into the big compounds. Let's talk about just the bicep. One of the muscles that Rich loves to pin tons of stuff inside of. He's got tons of fake muscle in those biceps. I'm surprised he can even train them with the amount of shit he's got in them. I'm surprised they can even flex. But I digress. So maybe he does know something, because the fact that he can even move his arms still, I think, is a damn miracle. So that being said, when you lift the weight, what happens? Muscles contract in the bicep, it pulls on the tendon pulls on the bone, lifts your arm, right? You're curling. When you're lowering the weight, even if you let it go fast and you catch it at the bottom, what stops it at the bottom? The muscles contracting. All right, when you're controlling it on the way down, that's still muscle fibers firing to try to keep it from going down fast. If it comes down fast and you stop, you got to stop it at some point. What stops it? Muscles in the bicep. Your muscles are responsible for all of the lifting, and they're responsible even for the lowering of the weight unless you just let it drop completely, free fall. Not going to work on a lot of exercises. People say, well, you're not doing that on a squat because you're catching it at the bottom at some point. Something is causing you to stop and catch it somewhere in the lift. It's the muscles that do that. But, you know, that's the thing, is that he's sitting here, what he's really talking about is just doing good form, but he wants to talk about the pump, and he's talking about lifting as if weight doesn't matter. And I'm not saying the pump doesn't matter. You know what? There's emerging data showing that a pump is oftentimes a good sign, not a guaranteed sign. It's actually a good sign that you've caused a fair amount of metabolic fatigue. What are the two biggest factors in hypertrophy and muscles growing? According to when we've done muscle biopsies and MRIs and looked at everything going on in a muscle, when they grow, the factors are generally tension, that's the weight that it's being subjected to, and the metabolic fatigue. And the metabolic fatigue is caused by prolonged workload, meaning tension is just what you're doing for each rep, the amount of tension that muscle's subjected to. That's the weight versus like the length of your arm, the lever arms, how much force is being applied to the muscle. All right, that affects muscle fiber recruitment. Metabolic fatigue is the fatigue that builds up in those muscle fibers that is a big, big factor in muscle growth, okay? The pump can be a positive sign that the muscles are being fatigued, metabolic fatigue, metabolites building up, okay? So it's nothing wrong with that. Pump is probably a good sign. But to act like the weight doesn't matter, the tension doesn't matter, goes against everything every expert who's doing muscle biopsies knows. Everything that everyone looks at, we know that tension matters. Weight on the bar damn sure matters. The only people who say weight doesn't matter on the bar who are big are people who are using massive amounts of drugs. Or people like Rich using massive amounts of drugs, massive amount of site enhancement. At a certain point, I'd ask Rich, how would you even know what stimulates growth in an arm? You've got so much shit injected into your arms, so much fake muscle, oil, collagen, everything else, and you're using shitloads of gear. How would you even know what's worked for you or not at this point? How would you even know? And it's scary that a person really and truly believes that weight doesn't matter, and that going heavier, that the tendons and joints do the work and the muscles don't. That the muscles only work when you lift light. The muscles do all of the work every time. Now, he could argue, and a lot of people could say that if you're not using reasonably strict form, maybe the muscles you're trying to work aren't doing all the work, that other muscles are doing the work. But if you're using decent form, going heavy is a fantastic way to stimulate hypertrophy. Weight on the bar, chasing numbers matters. I'm going to ask a simple question. When you're bench pressing and you come down and you pause bench and you do it correctly with good form, do you think your chest is going to be bigger when you're benching 225 for 8 to 10 reps? Or when you finally get to where you're doing 315 for 8 to 10 reps and you've added a full extra plate for side with good form and you've gotten a hell of a lot stronger, don't you think your chest and triceps are going to be bigger? Biology says they have to get bigger. That's chasing numbers. You're chasing numbers still. You're trying to increase your 10 rep sets. You're trying to increase your 5 rep sets. You're trying to increase your 3 rep sets. That is how you get bigger. As long as you're using good technique and you're working the muscles through the full range of motion, as long as you're getting stronger on those lifts, you are getting bigger. Tension, direct tension, weight on the bar is a massive factor in muscle growth. Obviously, total workload and fatigue is also a massive factor. You can't separate the two. They're both important. The only time they matter a lot less, that either one of them becomes unimportant, is when you up the dose on your drugs, because the drugs are now your stimulator of growth, not your training. Training starts to take more of a back seat at that point. But again, this is someone who abuses massive amounts of drugs and site enhancement, giving people advice who doesn't even know, after 30 years of training, still doesn't know what in the hell he's talking about. He doesn't even know the difference between tendons and muscles and what they do in an exercise. That's scary. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.